This happened a few weeks ago. I was working as a night security guard at a local shopping mall. The place had seen better days. The lights flickered, and the stores had faded signs. It was empty when I started my shift at 11 p.m. I thought the quiet might be nice, but it felt like a ghost town. Each aisle looked like a maze ready to swallow me whole. I'd never stopped thinking about it. On my second night, I noticed a strange chill in the air. I walked through the mall, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The echoes of my footsteps bounced off the tile floor. It was unsettling. Suddenly, I heard another set of footsteps. They were softer, like someone trying to be quiet. My heart started racing. I felt a knot in my stomach. I aimed my flashlight around but only saw empty storefronts. Feeling uneasy, I moved toward the sound, but it stopped. I called out, "Hello?" Silence answered back. I didn't know what to do. I stepped deeper into the mall, trying to shake the feeling that something was wrong. The footsteps had stopped, but I still felt something watching me from the shadows. I took a deep breath and continued my rounds. As November dragged on, things got weirder. The footsteps grew louder each night. Sometimes they sounded like running. I was confused and tired, my eyelids heavy. One night, I thought I saw a figure out of the corner of my eye, but when I turned, there was nothing. I shook my head, thinking I needed sleep. One night, I noticed items moving in stores. A display would be arranged differently from the night before. I walked along the aisles, my flashlight beam dancing over the shelves. A mannequin was facing a different direction, almost like it was watching me. It felt wrong. I laughed to myself, trying to make sense of it, but I couldn't shake off the fear creeping in. I forced myself to focus, but it was hard. I was exhausted. Whispers filled the air one night. I stood still, straining to listen. "Tom," a voice called out softly. My blood ran cold. I looked around, but I was alone. The whispers faded like a breeze, leaving me frozen. Then came my last shift of the month. The lights flickered more often. I crept through the mall, each step heavy with dread. When I reached the food court, I heard the footsteps again, louder this time. It sounded close, right behind me. I turned quickly, my heart racing. The store windows reflected my pale face, but there was something moving in the corner. Then the lights flickered, and I swore I saw someone standing there. But when I turned, I was alone. The quiet came back, but the whispers felt closer now. I took a step back, trembling. "Who's there?" I called out, and silence swallowed my words. I stood frozen, my breath catching in my throat. The empty food court felt colder now, like a void wrapped around me. "Who's there?" I repeated, almost a whisper. The shadows didn't answer. I took a hesitant step forward, my flashlight flickering in and out as if it was struggling against the darkness. My mind raced. This place had become a nightmare, and I was the unwitting player in it. I decided that I needed to get out of the food court, to the security office where I felt just a bit safer. Suddenly, the lights above me flared brightly for a moment before dying again, plunging me into darkness. My heart thundered in my chest. I fumbled with my flashlight, trying to get it to work. I heard the footsteps again, clearer, closer. I forced myself to move, creeping toward the exit. But just as I turned the corner, my light finally caught something. Or someone. A figure stood at the end of the corridor that led back to the main entrance. It was tall, and dressed in what looked like a gray hoodie. I couldn't see its face, but I felt a deep dread pool in my stomach. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice quivering. "Who are you?" The figure didn't move. It just stood there as if waiting for something. I inched closer, trying to calm the panic rising in my chest. Then, the figure lifted a hand, and I saw a glint of metal. I stumbled backwards, nearly falling into a closed shop. "Please don't come any closer," I yelled. The figure let out a low, eerie chuckle. I didn't understand why I was being laughed at. It felt mocking, like I was the fool in this twisted game. I turned on my heel, pushing myself to run back through the food court. I raced past tables and chairs, my breath coming in frantic gasps. As I skidded to the exit door that led to the security office, I could have sworn I heard a laugh morph into a whisper again, saying my name. Tom. I slammed the door behind me and locked it, my back against it as I panted for air. It was quiet inside the small room, filled only with the dim glow of old monitors. I tried to collect my thoughts. What was happening? Who was that figure? I scanned the monitors, desperate for reassurance. My eyes widened. On the screen that showed the food court, the figure was standing exactly where I had last seen it. Except now it wasn't alone. Another shadow joined it, whispering something I couldn't hear. I leaned closer to the monitor, my heart racing again. That wasn't just any figure. I recognized that tall shape. It belonged to the mannequin I'd seen moving around, facing me earlier in the store. Just as that realization hit me, the lights in the security office began to flicker. I felt the temperature drop again. Then everything went dark. My heart raced in the sudden dark, a constant reminder of my vulnerability. Panic threatened to spill over as I swung my flashlight around, desperate to pierce the void. The beam sputtered back to life, illuminating the chaos of the room. Overturned chairs, scattered papers, and the flickering screens portraying a nightmare I wasn't ready to face. Come on, work, I urged the flashlight, shaking it. I breathed deeply, trying to center myself. This wasn't the time to let fear take control. As the light steadied, I looked back at the monitors. My stomach dropped. The figures were still in the food court. The mannequin was now closer to the center, hovering ominously beside the shadow of the person in the hoodie. Two figures whispering together. I couldn't hear the words, but the sight made it clear that their conversation was sinister. I turned to the door, punching in the security code, hoping to re-establish some sense of control. It clicked unlocked, but I hesitated. What if they were waiting for me on the other side? My instincts screamed at me to stay put, yet something compelled me to step out. I needed answers, and I couldn't hide forever. With a deep breath, I opened the door a crack, peering into the dark corridor. The silence was deafening. I pushed the door open wider and slipped out, mind racing with half-formed plans and possibilities. As I approached the food court, the smell of stale food and a hint of something metallic filled the air. I inched closer, the flashlight breaking the darkness in waves. What I saw next made my stomach twist. The mannequin was no longer alone. It had somehow moved closer to the edge of the food court, and now it stood facing me, its glassy eyes unblinking. I took a tentative step back. What the hell? I mumbled. Then I saw the figure in the gray hoodie turn its head an inch in my direction. I froze again, awareness flooding my senses. It felt like the walls were closing in. Tom. A whisper, soft yet chilling, drifted through the air. It was unmistakably sweet, yet filled with malice. My name, wrapped in an eerie intimacy, sent shivers down my spine. Mind racing, I turned to run. My instincts kicked in and I sprinted toward the exit. I needed to get outside to distance myself from whatever this was. But as I reached the door, a hand gripped my shoulder. Ice coursed through my veins. I spun around, swinging my flashlight wildly, and collided with something hard. The beam landed on the figure's face, illuminating something I never expected to see. The hood had fallen back, and I was met with a familiar expression. My heart sank. This wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew. Then everything around me shifted, and I realized I was wrong. Tom. The mannequin spoke, its mouth moving, forming the word in a way I could never have imagined. I turned, desperate to flee, but the doorway slammed shut behind me. I was caught between familiar faces and twisted figures with no escape in sight. I needed to find a way out fast. Just then, I heard a chink of metal hitting the ground, echoing ominously in the silence. I glanced down and saw a key. But it wasn't just any key, I recognized it. It was a key to a door that shouldn't exist. I scrabbled for the key, instinct kicking in. My fingers wrapped around the cold metal and I held it up like a talisman against the chaos. Did it belong to the door in the back of the mall? The one everyone said led nowhere? The mannequin shifted slightly, its head tilting in a curiosity that felt all wrong. You shouldn't have come here, Tom, it said, its voice reverberating in a way that made the hair on my arms stand up. Stop it, I shouted, backing away from the horror unfolding before me. You're not real. Each word felt like a futile attempt to reclaim my reality. This couldn't be happening. As the figure in the hoodie began to move closer, I spun around, searching for an exit. The food court was a horrific scene of abandoned tables and remnants of a late-night rush. I scanned the area. I couldn't stay here. My mind raced, calculating my next step. That's when I spotted it. A hallway leading out of the food court, shrouded in shadows but offering a way forward. I darted towards it, the flashlight beam bouncing wildly as I ran. My heart thumped in my chest, not daring to look back. The hallway stretched out before me, illuminated only by the faint glow of the emergency lights. I paused, my breath heavy. Was I safe yet? The silence weighed down on me like a physical thing. I took a few more steps and then froze again. The sound of footsteps echoed behind me, sharp and deliberate. I felt the panic rise in my throat. I needed to keep moving. The key felt heavier in my pocket. I had to find that door. But where was it again? The old maintenance area? Maybe it led to some kind of escape. I pushed through the memories of my late-night explorations, trying to remember. As I turned the corner, I came upon a battered door. It was old and worn, barely hanging on its hinges. "This has to be it," I muttered, my fingers fumbling for the key. I barely believed it myself. Just as I was about to insert the key, the door swung open with a creak, revealing a dim room packed with shadows. My insides twisted. A chilling realization hit me. The figure in the gray hoodie appeared behind me, blocking my exit. "Tom," it said again, more forcefully this time. "You can't leave just yet." My fingers clutched the key tighter. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice shaking. The ambiance felt suffocating. "No one can find that door," it said, and as it stepped forward I saw its face more clearly. It wasn't just someone familiar, it was someone I thought I'd lost. "You don't understand what's at stake here." Then, without warning, the lights flickered out again, plunging us into darkness. I could hear only my own shallow breaths, the encroaching dread palpable around me. I dropped the key as I stumbled back, and new sounds filled the space. Low growls, a chorus of whispers surrounding me. "Get out," I thought, desperate, but the room felt like a trap, a void closing in around me. That's when I realized the whispers had merged into a chant. Their words were foreign yet familiar all at once, pulling me into a tide of confusion. And then I saw it. Between the gaps of darkness, a flicker of light escaping from a crack on the wall. I ran toward it, drawn like a moth to a flame. I didn't want to look back. Didn't want to see who was following me. I knew it didn't matter. I just had to escape. But in that moment, as I reached for the light, glimpses of everything I'd ever feared collided in my mind. Questions raced through my thoughts harder than ever. What had I stumbled into? And why did this all feel so familiar? The moment my fingers brushed against the crack in the wall, a pulse of electricity shot through me. The light, though faint, felt like a promise of hope. I took a deep breath and maneuvered my way through the narrow opening, willing my body to move faster. Behind me, the whispers intensified, no longer just a chorus. They twisted into a single voice. It wrapped around me, suffocating and filled with threats. My heart raced as I pushed through the gap, breathless and desperate for whatever lay beyond. I stumbled into a small storage room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with dusty boxes and forgotten items. The air was thick, smelling of mildew and old paper. I shut the door behind me, leaning against it with my eyes shut tight. Maybe they'd give up. Maybe the secret of this room would keep me safe, but the noise outside didn't cease. Something was still out there scratching at the door, beckoning me to join them in whatever nightmare awaited. "Calm down, Tom," I whispered to myself, shaking. "Think." The key still weighed heavily in my pocket, and I fished it out, studying it in the dim light. It felt different now. What if it opened something I hadn't yet discovered? I couldn't waste this chance. I quickly scanned the room, looking for another door, another escape. That's when I saw it. A rusty door at the far end of the storage room. It was partially ajar, a sliver of darkness peeking through. I crept toward it, my heart in my throat. Each step felt like a gamble. If this leads to more chaos, I can't be surprised, I thought. Yet I felt compelled to discover what lay behind it. As I reached for the doorknob, I hesitated. What if the figure in the hoodie followed? What if the whispers knew my name and had plans for me? But I gritted my teeth. You can't let fear win, I reminded myself. I turned the knob, holding my breath. The door creaked open, revealing not just another room but a vast, cavernous space that felt like an underground labyrinth. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced along the concrete walls. My stomach dropped. This looked like a maintenance area. But why was it so huge? When I took a tentative step inside, the floor groaned beneath me. I recoiled and scanned the expanse. A chill ran down my spine. Piles of debris and old machinery stood in disarray, scattered like forgotten relics. And yet, a feeling gnawed at me. This place was alive with something dark, something that didn't want me here. Suddenly the door slammed shut behind me, the echo reverberating through the cavern. The whispers surged back to life, louder and more frantic. "Find the key!" they cried, their urgency striking a nerve. I felt the pulse of the key in my hand, the way it burned against my skin. Find the key for what? I had to figure it out. But how? I couldn't shake the feeling that this space was a trap. Something was waiting just out of sight, and I was being drawn deeper into its web. Then I saw it. At the far end of the room, a flicker of movement caught my eye. Shadows shifted, forming a silhouette that stood unnaturally still. My breath hitched. What now? I wondered, my heart pounding so hard it felt ready to burst. The only thing I knew in that moment was I had to confront whatever was lurking before me. But part of me screamed to run. In that instant, everything changed. I had entered a world far away from the mall, one where the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. And then the whispers grew into a deafening roar. "You must understand," they chanted, "before it's too late." Something was coming, and it would reveal a truth I couldn't avoid any longer. I took a shaky step forward, my eyes locked onto the shape in the shadows. It didn't move, but I could feel its gaze on me, piercing through the dim light. I felt frozen, caught between the urge to flee and the desperate need to confront whatever this was. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. The question hung in the air, unanswered. I squinted, trying to see more clearly, but all I could make out was the silhouette, a tall figure shrouded in darkness. Then without warning, it took a step toward me. My breath hitched as panic surged through me. That's when I noticed that the whispers had shifted again. They sounded soothing now, almost inviting. "Come closer," they beckoned. "It's safe." But I felt anything but safe. I clenched my fists around the key, feeling its cold weight anchor me. "What do you want?" I shouted. The figure paused, as if considering my question. Suddenly it moved again, and in a blink it was closer. The low light revealed details, a hooded cloak, tattered edges, and beneath it, a face obscured in shadow. My heart raced. I needed to act. Then I remembered the key. Maybe it wasn't just a matter of escape. Maybe it was a key to understanding this nightmare. "I have the key," I said, forcing the words out. "What do I unlock?" The figure tilted its head ever so slightly, and in that moment I thought I saw its mouth move. "Unlock the truth," it whispered, the voice soft, yet resonant. "It all leads back to the beginning." A shiver crept down my spine. "The beginning of what?" I asked, feeling the weight of the moment build. I was teetering on the edge of an answer, but it was just out of reach. I needed to know. I needed to push through my fear. Without waiting for an answer, I took another step closer, the echo of my footfall swallowed by the vastness of the space. "Show me," I demanded. As the words left my mouth, something clicked in the darkness. The shadows warped and shifted, expanding to reveal a series of old panels along the wall. They looked worn and weathered, but bore intricate symbols I couldn't decipher. "Unlock this," I urged the figure, my voice more a plea than a command. The figure raised a hand, slowly extending it toward the panels. I held my breath, heart pounding in anticipation. The whispers swelled around me, almost drowning out my thoughts. "You must choose," they echoed. "Do you dare to know?" My pulse raced. A choice. I could run, escape back to the surface, back to safety. But part of me wanted to stay, to uncover the mystery despite the risk. I took a deep breath. "I choose to know." The figure's hand lingered above one of the panels, and just then, a glimmer of light pulsed between us. I reached for the key in my pocket, knowing that whatever came next could change everything. As I approached the panel, the air thickened, as if the very space around me held its breath. But then everything shifted. The lights flickered violently, plunging me into darkness. I heard the whispers rise to a frantic crescendo. "Too late! Too late!" they screamed. A deep sense of dread flooded over me. I had ventured too far. I could no longer turn back. The truth was close, but so was something else. Something that wanted me to unravel this mystery at any cost. What would I discover if I pressed on? Would the truth set me free or trap me forever? Before I could think further, a loud crash echoed through the labyrinth, shaking the ground beneath me. My heart raced. Time was running out. I had to act. I felt the vibrations of the crash ripple through the floor beneath my feet. The air tingled with urgency. Whatever was happening, I knew I had to move quickly. I reached out, pressing the key against the panel that the figure had indicated. The moment the key touched the surface, a spark erupted, illuminating the darkness for a brief instant. Shapes danced around us, flickering images of people I didn't recognize, their faces twisted in pain or fear. I stumbled back, heart pounding. "What's this?" I gasped. The figure shifted, its presence hovering just at the edge of the flickering light. "Memories," it whispered. "The past cannot remain hidden." The shadows stretched with the motion of its hood, swallowing fragments of the images in darkness. I swallowed hard. Memories? Were these the memories of those who never escaped this place? I hesitated, but the need to know propelled me forward. The key still hummed against the panel, urging me to proceed. "Unlock it. Tell me what happened," I demanded, raw anxiety spilling from my voice. The whispers faded slightly, as if the shadows themselves were waiting for my next move. With a deep breath, I twisted the key in the panel's lock. It turned smoothly, and the moment it clicked, everything shifted again. A heavy door slid open in front of me with a groan, revealing a narrow corridor lined with ancient stone bricks. The smell of damp earth and something metallic flooded my senses. Before I could process my next steps, a low growl echoed from within the corridor. Something lurked in the shadows, something alive. I bit my lip and took a cautious step inside. Once I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around, panic rising. The whispers returned, now frantic. "Don't go deeper. Turn back." But I couldn't. The corridor stretched ahead, dark and whispering secrets that clawed at my curiosity. Suddenly I spotted a flicker of light at the end of the passageway. It pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. I felt drawn to it, despite the warning in my gut. Almost instinctively, I reached for the key again, still clutched tightly in my hand. It felt warm now, as if responding to the energy in the corridor. I continued forward, my feet moving faster than my thoughts. Whatever I found at the end of this passage could either save me or seal my fate. As I approached the light, I felt the temperature drop sharply, a bone-chilling breeze sweeping past me. I shivered but pressed on, each step heavy with uncertainty. The flickering expanded, revealing a large chamber bathed in an eerie glow. That's when I saw it. A pedestal in the center, adorned with ancient carvings that matched the symbols on the panels. A small ornate box sat atop the pedestal, glistening under the ghostly light. My heart raced as I recognized something familiar about it. "What are you?" I whispered, reaching out instinctively. Just as my fingers brushed against the surface, another crash reverberated through the chamber, shaking the walls. This time the ground beneath me trembled violently, and I stumbled, eyes wide in terror as dust rained down from the ceiling. A new urgency gripped me. I had to find out what was in that box before whatever was haunting me outside broke through. But the moment I touched it again, I felt a surge of energy. A wave of clarity washed over me. I started to see images flash before my eyes, faces, places. Some I recognized, others were strangers. Then the whispers became coherent, forming words that chilled my bones. You shouldn't have come here. In that moment I realized I had opened a door not just to the past but to something far more dangerous. I swallowed hard, heart racing as I braced myself for what came next. The truth was within reach, but so was the threat of losing everything. The box felt cold against my fingertips, sending a jolt through my arm. I pulled back, heart pounding louder than the echo of the last crash. The whispers transformed into a cacophony of screams, desperate and pleading. They swirled around me, sending chills down my spine. You shouldn't have come here, they hissed again, their voices coated in dread. I took a step back, bumping into the wall, my mind racing. The shadows in the chamber twisted, and for a moment I thought I saw a figure moving among them. Fear knotted in my stomach. I glanced at the box. Whatever lay inside felt like a key to unraveling what had happened here, but at what cost? Another growl rumbled from the corridor behind me, deeper and more guttural. I turned, adrenaline coursing through me. The darkness seemed to shift, revealing a pair of glinting eyes focused directly on me. Panic surged. Whatever was lurking out there wasn't going to wait for me to make a decision. You have to leave, I whispered to myself, but my feet wouldn't move. The light from the box flickered like a dying star, casting long shadows that reached out into the darkness. I glanced back at it. I couldn't just abandon it now. Something inside called to me. Please, I yelled into the emptiness. I need to know. The growl intensified, reverberating through the chamber, and I felt the walls shake. I needed strength, but I was frozen with fear. My hands trembled as I reached for the box again. Maybe if I opened it, it would tell me everything. Maybe it would set this darkness free. Just as I gripped the lid, the walls trembled even more violently. Dust and gravel rained down, and a deafening crash echoed from the corridor. Hurry, a voice urged, but it was an echo, one I couldn't quite place. My breath quickened as a terrible realization hit me. A shadow was moving too quickly. It lunged, stretching out toward me, hungry for something I couldn't understand. I pulled open the box with shaking hands. Inside, layers of papers and trinkets tumbled out, glimmering briefly in the light before fading into the shadows. I fumbled, grabbing a faded photograph. It was a picture of a family I didn't recognize, their faces blurred, as if they had been scrubbed from memory. Not this, I yelled, casting it aside. Above all, I needed answers. I dug deeper, revealing a small vial containing a glowing, swirling liquid. My heart raced at the sight. What are you? I managed to murmur. The shadows stirred as the growl came closer. I felt time slipping, every second pulsing with urgency. Suddenly, something yanked at my ankle. I gasped and stumbled, my other hand clutching the edge of the pedestal. The shadows pulled me down, dragging me toward the darkness. No, I screamed as I fought against their grip, my other hand clenching the vial tight. At that moment, I felt the power inside it, an energy that thrummed with life. Could it be my way out? Use it. The voice again, clearer now, but the sound melted into the chamber. I quickly yanked the vial from its confines, holding it aloft. Let me go, I shouted at the shadows, my resolve hardening. Just as they tightened their hold, I poured the contents onto the floor. A brilliant light erupted, blinding and immense. I shielded my eyes, feeling the force push back against the shadows, forcing them to retreat. But in the chaos, I caught a glimpse of something. A flicker of a face I recognized. A haunting memory that gripped me in fear. Someone close to me. Help! I yelled. But I wasn't ready for the answer that came. The light expanded, filling the chamber, and with it the final scream echoed. I braced myself as the world around me crumbled, swallowing the shadows and maybe more than I was prepared to lose. I blinked, and suddenly the light vanished. The emptiness swallowed me, dragging me into the depths of a yawning void. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. I gasped for breath, my lungs feeling as though they were filled with clouds. Then, I landed hard on cold stone. The chamber was gone. I pushed myself up, trying to make sense of my surroundings. The air was thick and heavy, fragments of memories swirling around me like dust in the wind. The walls were a murky gray, cracked and uneven, and shadows clung to the corners. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice felt small and insignificant. Every footstep echoed, and the sound made my skin prickle. I forced myself to stand, shaking off the disorientation. Ahead the darkness shifted, revealing what looked like a massive door. It towered over me, intricately carved with symbols I couldn't decipher. As I approached, a sensation surged through me, a warning tingling at the base of my skull. Something was watching. Then I saw it. A figure slipped from the shadows, moving with an unnatural grace. It was tall, featureless, an outline barely distinguishable from the blackness surrounding it. Fear seized me, and I staggered back. "Who are you?" I croaked. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it reached a hand forward. No, not a hand. A shadow. A thick tendril of darkness coiled around the floor, inching toward me. It felt wrong. A snare rather than an invitation. I dropped the vial, its glow flickering and fading as it rolled away. "Stop!" I shouted, but the figure continued its advance. Panic surged through me, igniting a primal instinct to flee. I turned to the door, but it seemed even farther away now. The shadows lengthened, and I felt their cold grip threatening to pull me back into the darkness. "Remember," a voice echoed behind me. It was faint, warped, almost as if coming from a far-off dream. "Find the light." The words stuck with me. What light? I glanced back at the figure, now closer, the tendrils extending hungrily. Time was slipping away, and so was my courage. My heart raced as I crouched low, searching for something in the dimness. That's when I saw it. Barely visible among the rubble was a small cracked mirror. I grasped it, lifting it high to catch any glimmer from the fading vial. I pressed it toward the entity, and to my surprise the reflection shimmered, refracting tiny sparks of light that burst forth like fireflies. The figure shrieked, recoiling as if burned by the light. The shadows raged, but I held my ground, more resolute now. I aimed the mirror like a shield, pushing forward as the light grew stronger, illuminating the corridor bit by bit. "Get away!" I yelled, my fear morphing into defiance. I pressed forward, the mirror a beacon in the dark, forcing the creature to retreat. But just as I felt victory bloom, the reflection twisted and changed, becoming clearer. I nearly dropped it in shock. A face emerged, one I had thought lost forever. "No," I whispered, my heart pounding. The shadows writhed, pulling me back as my world spun again. I had to escape. But now I was caught in a battle, not just for my survival, but for someone I never expected to see again. "Help me!" The words escaped my mouth as blackness closed in, and I felt the mirror slip from my fingers. The last thing I saw was that familiar face smiling sadly, before everything plunged into darkness once more. I gasped as light burst back into existence, flooding my senses like a rushing tide. I blinked, struggling to orient myself. The harsh glow of fluorescent lights buzzed above. I was back in the mall, slumped against the cold floor of the food court. My heart pounded like a drum. Confusion, fear, and a strange sense of relief coursed through me. The faint smell of stale fries lingered in the air, a mundane reminder of where I was. I sat up, looking around. The shadows were gone. The food court was eerily quiet. Was it over? Had I escaped whatever nightmarish forces had taken root in this place? I pressed my palms into the floor, pushing myself up. The key lay beside me, still glinting amidst the chaos of overturned chairs. I picked it up cautiously, as if it might burn my fingers. Memories of the shadows clawing at me sent shivers down my spine. I felt the weight of the vial gone from my pocket, leaving only the emptiness of what I'd lost. I stumbled to my feet, glancing at the exit. It yawned before me, promising the safety of the outside world. But as I took a step toward the door, a low creak echoed through the space. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. I turned slowly, looking back at the emptiness of the food court. There, the figure from my vision stood again at the edge of the shadows, less defined this time, but unmistakably there. Still wearing the gray hoodie, its form flickered like a defective screen, as if it were tethered to a reality that resisted its presence. "Tom," it called, a soft echo of my name that sent a tremor through me. "You left the door open." I fought the urge to bolt for the exit. How was this possible? Was this a trick of my mind? Or was the fight truly over? "What do you want?" I asked, my voice trembling. I had stared into the abyss and barely escaped, and now it stood just beyond the harsh glare of the lights. It felt like a midnight horror that refused to relinquish its grip. "Choices come with consequences," the figure replied, and I could see its mouth move beneath the hood, but its face remained shrouded in shadow. "You have opened things that should not be set free." I felt the depth of meaning in its words. Memories slid back into view, flashes of faces desperate for light and echoes of pain. Despair clawed at me. "What have I done?" I whispered. The hoodie figure tilted its head, a sorrowful gesture. "You have faced the truth, but truth brings burdens. There are others who still need help, Tom." It gestured vaguely towards the darkness I had only just escaped. "No," I said, shaking my head fiercely. I had barely survived this nightmare. How could I even begin to help anyone else? "I can't. I'm done." But even as I spoke, that familiar pang of guilt twisted in my chest. The whispers echoed softly around me, and in the background I could almost hear cries for help, fading like ghosts. "You must decide," the figure intoned solemnly, "to remain in your world, or to face what lies beyond. There are truths better left untouched, and yet—" "Yet?" I pressed, my breath haggard. "Yet those truths also hold the keys to others' liberation. You can choose to turn away, to forget. Or you can choose the light, and face what lies on the other side." My pulse thundered in my ears. I remembered the box, what it had held, and how those whispers had filled my mind. I felt torn between relief and an unsettling longing. There was so much I didn't understand. "Think, Tom. Day fades. Darkness pools. You have seen how thin the veil can be." And with those words the figure melted back into the shadows, an echo of my own struggles and guilt trailing behind it. I stood there, caught between the world I knew and the ones yet unexplored. The exit loomed before me, but that choice felt heavier than before. I glanced at the key in my palm. The key that had unlocked the door to something larger than myself. I didn't want to be trapped by loss, nor did I wish to abandon the cries of the past. I looked back to where the figure had stood, uncertainty gnawing at me. The mall, the spirits, the memories, truth, with all its haunting complexities, lingered around me. I turned toward the exit, my heart racing. But I knew my journey wasn't over yet. "Maybe one day," I whispered to the emptiness, "but not tonight." And with that decision I pushed through the door, not as a captive of fear, but as someone who would not let the darkness claim everything, at least not yet. As I stepped into the cool night air, I looked back once more, and for just a split second I thought I saw that flickering figure. It paused before vanishing, leaving me with the heavy weight of choice. I moved on, uncertain but somehow liberated, ready to face more than just the echoes of my past. As I walked away from that haunted place, I knew something essential was waiting for me out there. Buried but not dead. And a part of me forever wondered, what would I discover when I chose to confront the dark again?